Hi. Previously, we've looked at how to go about contacting an agent, what are some query tips, how to write a query letter. In this podcast, we just want to provide sort of a checklist of things to do before you contact an agent. So, for fiction writers, the first thing is finish the story. That seems kind of obvious, but sometimes people think that they have an idea for a book or they have like an unfinished manuscript, but they think it's really good. They think they can go ahead and contact an agent, but in reality, the agent is not going to be interested in anything that isn't finished. So, the first thing you need to do is finish the story. Now, sometimes what they might do is they might, after you submit your treatment or your book proposal to them, and they might sometimes come back to you and say that they want it revised, or the publisher says something like they want it revised, or they need it rewritten. But that worry about that later on. The first thing you need to do though is finish the story. Then put it down for a while, go back, maybe put it down for a few days or a week, and then go back and revise it yourself. Sometimes it helps to put things away for a few days after you finish it, then come back and look at it again with fresh eyes. And you might have some revision ideas. You want to proofread it and catch any typos, because if you submit something with a lot of typos, that just screams amateur, right? So make sure you do that. Then you want to go ahead and see if you can get, at least if it's a short story, you want to see if you can get that published in journals and magazines, or if it is a full manuscript, a full book, then at least see if you can get excerpts printed at certain places in certain publications. And not just physical publications, but there's a lot of resources out there, lots of different online publications that you can look into. Then do your research on agents. Find the appropriate agent for you, for your work. Go to the Literary Guide of Agents and other books like that, and find a list of agents. Do some research on the types of agents that maybe specialize in the genre that your book is in, and so just do your research on that. Then you need to go ahead and write the book proposal, write the synopsis. Make sure that you have that polished and that it's free of errors, of course. Then you go ahead and write the query letter. And the same process, the same things apply. You want to write the query letter, then maybe go back and revise the query letter, maybe show it to some friends or some colleagues and make sure that it's free of typos. And then you go ahead and do some research about your industry, especially if you're new in the publishing world. If this is your first book, go ahead and do a little research about the business of agents and what they do. That way you're familiar with any questions they might come back to you with. And for nonfiction writers, it kind of works the same way. There are some differences, but with nonfiction books, you need to start out by formulating an idea or a thesis and an outline. What is your nonfiction book going to be about? Then you want to do some research on similar books. Look at some competitive titles out there. What makes your idea, your thesis unique? Because agents don't want to receive work that's very similar to something else that's been done. They want something unique, something that they can have selling points on. So go ahead and do your research on that and look up some competitive titles and what they're about. Then you go ahead and compose the work, write the book. Then once you have that complete, you will go ahead and you will see if you can get, again, excerpts or chapters of your book, and see if you can get them placed in publications, journals, magazines, both physical and online. Then go ahead and polish your outline, make sure that it is free of any errors. Then do some research on some possible marketing and sales options, because sometimes agents will come back to you after you submit your letter and they'll say, hey, how do you think we can go about marketing this? Or sometimes the publisher will ask that. So do your research beforehand. See about, if you want to start up a website, go do some social media marketing, things like that. Then, of course, just like the fiction people, do your research on finding the appropriate agents for your work that you can, go to, that you can send your query letter. And then, of course, you need to write your query letter to them. And, of course, make sure that you don't just rush that. Make sure that it's free of errors. Make sure that it reads well and that it's something that's going to grab their interest. And then also, again, do your research on the publishing industry, especially if this is like your first book. Just make sure to go ahead and do some research on how agents operate and maybe some of the questions that they might ask, when they come back to you if they're interested.